Hi everyone. Today I'd like to demonstrate the new map template functionality found in Simple GIS Client version 10, which enables you to quickly and easily publish maps from within your Simple GIS Client project. To begin, I've opened a project that I created previously using the OpenStreetMap data wizard for the state of Louisiana. And this is a project that just contains detailed street map for the state of Louisiana. And to begin with, the very first thing you'd want to do is zoom to your area that you're interested in generating a map for. And for the purposes of this initial demo, I'm just going to zoom to the state of Louisiana, to the entire state boundary. Next, you would locate the Publish Map tool, which is located to the far right of the top row of buttons. So if you locate the top row of buttons in your Map Data View document, look to the far right, and it looks like an empty sheet of paper with a globe in the center. And if I click on this tool, I'll see that I get a new dialog box that says Create Map from Template. In the upper left-hand corner, you may notice an input box prompting you to enter a name for your new map document. So essentially, what we're doing at this point is we are going to be creating a new map document within your project file. And Simple GIS is recommending a name based upon current documents in your project file. For this demo, I don't have any other map documents, so it's simply recommending a name of Map 1, which I could overwrite and type my own name if I wish. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to accept the generic name of Map 1. Underneath this is a list box that displays all of the available templates in Simple GIS. So each template has a preview image that kind of gives you an idea of what is inside the template or what it contains. And also there's a brief description underneath each template. And as you click on a template, you'd be able to read the full contents of that description. So the very first template here in our list box is just for a new empty map layout. So essentially, if you select this template, it's just going to generate an empty page for you that would allow you to manually place the map elements you want on your map. And essentially that's what the description says, is use this template to design your map from scratch. And you could certainly do that, but for the purposes of this demo, we're going to use one of the predefined templates to demonstrate that functionality. So if we just look one over from the new empty map layout, I'm going to select the one called Small Page Full Portrait Layout. And if we read the description, we see that it contains no title, legend, scale bar, north arrow, or overview. So this is just a very basic layout that just has the map that occupies the full page. So after we select our template from the list, in the upper half of the dialog box, the actual settings for our template then are all specified in the lower half of the dialog box. So as we look down here below, we see that we have a lot of different settings that we can set for our template. Now, these are all governed by the template that you select. So which ones are enabled and which ones you're enabled to set are governed by the template. So in this case, I see that I can set a page setting size, and the page sizes available to me are letter, legal, and tabloid. And this is based upon the template being based upon small sheet sizes. So therefore, that's the only sheet sizes available. If I move a couple of templates over, I see there's one called Large Page Full Portrait. And if I select that template, I now see that my page sizes available are C size, D size, and E size for large format plotting. So again, this is all governed by the template selected. Also notice that I can't set any page orientation because the page orientation is defined by the template I've selected. So in this case, it's portrait orientation already. Likewise, I cannot set a map title since this particular template contains no map title, nor can I set scale bar units or any of the legend settings since it contains no scale bar or legend in this case. Now some settings that I can set on this, for instance, is the map scale. So by default, Simple GIS has picked a scale to fit the entire contents of our map data view document that we're creating this map from on a single sheet of paper. And so that's the scale that we're seeing here. But I could override that if I wished to do so and type in a new scale if I knew the scale that I wanted it to be plotted at. In addition to this, I could choose whether I wanted to view a reference map grid on my map document. So if I did want to have a reference map grid visible, I'd simply click on this Show Map Grid checkbox. And also I would need to specify a grid interval, which Simple GIS has recommended one for us at 2.5 degrees, and that is based upon the scale chosen for our map over here. So as the scale changes, it would recommend a different grid interval based upon that scale. And I know that the units are in degrees because my map data view document that this map is going to be based on, its projection was in geographic coordinates, in other words, latitude, longitude coordinates. I can also specify the orientation for my grid labels for the x-axis and also for the y-axis. I'm just going to leave the default settings that's already on here. And I could also specify whether I wanted to create a map book. So I'm not going to cover this at this point in time. We'll cover this in a few minutes when we create a little more detailed map document. So with those settings, I simply click the apply, and I see now that Simple GIS has created a new map document. I can see my grid reference on the map document, and I see that I have the entire state of Louisiana displayed in my map document on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I can use my zoom in tool to zoom in on my page, and as I zoom in, I can see that I just zoom into the page, and I can actually read my grid labels now, and I see that my intervals are actually at the 2.5 degree interval that we had specified. So I see I had 30 degrees latitude, then 32.5 degrees. And as I zoom and pan, I see that I'm just simply zooming in or panning around on the actual map document page. Now, if I use my Select Graphics tool and I click in the center of my map, I see that it's going to highlight the area of my map, and this is the actual map viewport. So I can see with these black handles around. And the easiest way to describe this is if you picture this as a window on your sheet of paper that was looking into your map data view document. So here's the map data view that it's referencing. And if I go back and click on my map document, that viewport is essentially like a window looking at that map data view document. But there is a tool here, and it's on the top row right next to the scaling combo drop-down box. And the particular tool is called Viewport Navigation, and I just turned it on. I don't know if you saw it, but it looks like a sheet of paper with a globe and kind of a search magnifying glass in the center of it. And if I click on it again, so right now when I click on it again, I see the red X appear on it, and this means that it is turned off. But essentially what this tool allows me to do is to change the view within my viewport. So for instance, now if I zoom in, I see that I'm not zooming in on the page, but I'm zooming in within my viewport window and changing the scale of my map. So I've actually gone to a larger scale at this point in time. Likewise, if I pan inside my viewport, I see that I'm not moving my page around, but I'm actually changing the view inside my viewport window. So using this tool, you're able to really just display the area on the map that you are truly interested in. And here I'm just scrolling with my mouse wheel, and you can see that I can zoom in and out, likewise using a mouse wheel. I've turned the viewport navigation off for now, so now as I zoom in or out, again using my mouse wheel, you'll notice that now that I'm actually just zooming, making the page smaller or bigger. So now I'm back at my overall page view, And some of the other things I could do is I could add custom graphics to my map if I wanted to. So for instance, I could use my drawing tools here, and I could add an ellipse to my map if I wanted to. So I'm just going to select the ellipse draw tool and click and drag and draw an ellipse, and I see I get this graphic shape on my map. I don't particularly like the symbol that it used, so in that case I can change that. So I'm going to go back to my select graphics tool, and I'll simply double click in the ellipse, and I see I have these handles around it, and when I do double click inside of those handles on the elliptical object, I see that I get the graphic properties dialog box comes up, and I have a window here with a current symbol. If I double click on that, and I can actually choose a different symbol now for my ellipse. And actually I'm going to change the opacity and make my symbol semi-transparent, and maybe select a different color for it, and click OK, and then click apply. And I've now changed the look of the ellipse that I drew on my map. Likewise, I could come here and I could add text to my map if I so choose to. And I'll click where I want to add the text, and I'm going to type in just some sample text here. So I'll add it to a couple of lines, so it's not all on one long line, and I'll set the alignment to center. And I'm actually going to change my text symbology as well. I'm actually not going to change the symbol, I just want to change the size. So I'm going to change the scaling to 250%. And now when I click apply, I see that I have my text added. I don't really like the position of it, so I'm going to go back and use my select graphics tool. So I'll click on this tool, and then I position my mouse inside my text and just click and drag. So click while holding my mouse button down, drag to where I want the text to be placed. And I see I have all these graphics selected, indicated by these black handles. If I want to get rid of that, I just click off to the side while I have my select graphics tool selected, and that basically unselects all of those graphics. I can now print this map document if I so choose. I can go and click on the printer tool, and in this case I can't really print a range since it's only a single sheet for this particular map document, but I could print that if I so choose to. Or I could export this out to the clipboard or as a graphic file if I wanted to include this map, let's say in another program or application for like a presentation, like in, let's say, a PowerPoint presentation or an Excel worksheet or even a Microsoft Word document. So if I go to my export menu, I could export it as a graphic file if I so choose. Come here, select a file name for my graphic. And I'll leave my image resolution set pretty high so I get a nice quality graphic. Hit apply. And now if I was to go and look in that folder and do a refresh on it, I see that I now have this new graphic image that I could then insert into another program somewhere if I so choose to. Likewise, I could even export this map out as a PDF file. So there's a tool called Export Map to PDF. It's on the top row of buttons to the far right, and it looks like a green floppy disk with the words PDF across the top. And I select a file name for my new PDF document. And in this case, I don't have a choice but to do all pages since it's just a single sheet. I see that it processed, and now again if I go back into my Windows Explorer and refresh, I see now that I have my PDF map document. If I open that, I see the contents in my PDF document. So this is an easy way if you wanted to share a map with someone. You could create a PDF, send to them, and then they would have that map that they could view themselves. Now if I go back to my map data view document, I'm just clicking on the appropriate tabs at the bottom. I see that when I created this new map document, it created a new tab along the bottom. But back in my original map data view document, I'm going to go back to publish map, and this time I'm going to select a different template, and I'm going to select one with a few more features involved. So in this case, it's still a small page portrait layout, but it has an overview viewport on it, as well as a map legend, scale bar, and a map title as well. So it has quite a few more features. So I'll leave my page settings set to letter, but now I notice I can enter a title for my map. So I'll just type a brief title here. And I'm actually going to change the alignment for my title, make it left aligned. And in this case, I am going to want to generate a map book. So essentially a map book allows you to take an area based upon a layer, whatever this large extent is, based upon a given layer, and print a map that covers that entire extent at a specific scale. So in this case, the layer I'm going to choose to define my extent is the U.S. state boundary. So that basically this is just the state boundary for Louisiana that I just chosen, and that was a list of layers out of our map data view document. And then you see this checkbox that says exclude areas that contain no features. And I'll explain that in a few minutes after we generate our map document. It also wants you to select a color for your overview map highlight. I'm just going to leave it set to the default red. And now on my map scale, again, it chose a scale that will essentially fit the extent of this layer we chose on a single sheet of paper. But I actually want to print this at a larger scale, at a more detailed map level. So I'm going to change the scale. And in this case, I'm going to want to print, I'm going to say at a scale of 1 to 500,000. So I simply come here to my scale and type in 500,000. And then I also want to change the units for my scale bar. I don't want it to be in feet at this larger scale. I'm going to set it to miles. And in this case, I do want to show a map grid again, a reference grid, and I see that my grid interval has changed based upon the scale I entered for the map. Now it's saying it's recommending the grid interval of 0.25 degrees. I could override that if I want to set my own interval, but I'm going to leave the default that it chose. And now I'm also going to choose to my legend settings. I see that right now it's checked to show all layers, and what that means is at this scale here that we specified, any layers in our map data view document that are visible at that scale to show in our legend. So if I didn't want to see all layers in our legend, I could uncheck this box, and then I could select the specific layers, only those that I want to see in my legend. For this demo, I'm just going to leave it set to show all layers. And then I can also set whether I want to scale the legend to fit the frame. And what this means is the frame that was defined for the legend on our map document, if I have it scaled to fit frame, Simple GIS will automatically change the symbol sizes and font sizes to try and completely fill the frame defined for our legend. If this is not checked, it will use the exact symbol size off of our map data view document as well as the font size for our legend, which means depending upon the number of layers we've included in our legend, it may not completely fill the frame defined for the legend, or it may actually be clipped. But sometimes it is important that you want to preserve your symbol sizes exactly. For instance, if you had a layer that was using proportional symbols, for instance, like a point layer of cities where you were varying your symbol size based upon the population of a given city. In that case, you may not want to scale your legend. It would be important to preserve the size of your symbols so that you can accurately depict what you're wanting to depict with the population measurements. For the purposes of this demo, though, I'm just going to leave it set to scale the legend to fit the frame. And now when I click apply, again it creates a new map document, and I see that added a new tab along the bottom, and I see I now have a map title that I entered aligned to the left. I have my actual detailed map area at a scale of 1 to 500,000. I now have this overview map viewport with the shaded region in red indicating what's displayed in my detail along with my map legend, and I have a north arrow and scale bar. And if I zoom in, I see that my scale bar is set to 1 inch equals 7.89 miles, since I had set my units to miles in my scale bar, which is equivalent to 1 to 500,000. So 1 inch to 500,000 is equivalent to 1 inch to 7.89 miles. So if you notice in the lower right hand corner, you see this description says page 1 of 25 pages. So if I zoom into my overview map here, and I see for the entire region here defined by the boundary of Louisiana, what this is saying is at a scale of 1 to 500,000, Simple GIS divided this area up into individual sheets. And basically, it's calculated that at the scale of 1 to 500,000, it would take 25 sheets to cover the entire state. So that's what this is, where the 25 pages came from. And if we look at this extent area, so if you look at the outline of the state of Louisiana, it's kind of shaped like a boot. And you notice there's a large empty space around it. So if you kind of imagine the rectangular extent that it would take to encompass the state of Louisiana, there are large areas here that would have no features included. So kind of here in the upper right hand corner, you see there's a lot of empty white space. And so if you remember that checkbox that we described in the template that said exclude areas that contain no features of extent layer, well, the reason we check that is to exclude these areas here. Otherwise, we'd have had a lot more sheets generated that would have just been empty sheets and would have been wasted sheets. So by checking that, Simple GIS looked at the features and said, well, based upon that rectangular extent, there are certain areas that contains none of those features, so exclude them. And then if we look on our map, if we look in this lower right hand corner, we can navigate from one page to the next by clicking on the arrow buttons in the bottom right hand corner. And then we see in our overview map the shading changed to indicate the area depicted in our map detail. So as you can see, we can navigate from one sheet to the next. We can use the next page arrow, or we can go to the very last page if we click on the last page arrow, and we'll see that we go to page 25, or we can go back to the beginning of the map book by clicking on the first page arrow. Conversely, we could also go to any specific page by clicking in this input box next to the page, typing the page number, and hitting our enter key. And we now see that we've navigated to that specific page. Again, we could print this map book if we so chose so. We could print all pages in the map book by selecting all for the print range, or we could select to print only specific pages in a range. As far as exporting the map out to the clipboard or graphic file, we would have to do that a sheet at a time, since a graphic file like JPEG or bitmap can only contain a single sheet. However, we could export this map book to a PDF file. So if we click our Export to PDF tool, enter a file name for our new PDF document that we want to export. And in this case, we could export the contents of the entire map book, in other words, all pages, or again, we could only do a range of pages. So in this case, let's say we only wanted to do the first 5 pages. So we do from page 1 to page 5. And as we enter that and click apply, we see that it's processing. So now it's on page 3, 4, and now it's complete. So now if we go into our Windows Explorer and refresh our folder, we now see our new PDF map book document. And if we open this PDF file, we see that we now have this PDF with 5 sheets in it. And then we can go from each sheet and we see that it did in fact export the first 5 sheets out of our map book. So again, this is a really easy and powerful way to share maps with others. And of course, we see that we have our sheet here. We could actually customize these features if we wanted to. We could add custom graphics to it, either by drawing polygons or lines or whatever, as we showed before. And we see here that we actually do have these new map documents here at the bottom, and we can simply click on the tabs to go to whichever document we want it to go to. One other tool to demonstrate real quick, let's say in this project we had saved it and now we have these map documents that we've already created. We don't want to create a new map document, but we just want to reopen one that we've already created. We'd go to our Open Map Document tool, which is located right next to the Publish Map Document tool. When we click on it, we get a dialog box with a drop down that allows us to select the document we want to open. And we simply select the map document we're interested in and click OK, and we see that it opens that particular map document. Of course, we could have just, in this case, clicked on the tabs on the bottom to go to that document since they were already opened. But let's say, for instance, we had closed these documents and now we wanted to open one of those map documents. We could go back to our Open Map Document tool, select the map document we want to open, click OK, and it is now open. So hopefully this has been beneficial for you, but as always, for more information, please see our website at www.simplegis.software.com. Thank you. Have a great day.